to sacrifice their exposure for the sake of their livelihood to actually get hired in the first place. It provides a stepping stone for them to actually be in this industry to begin with. Why is this particularly important? Because it's valuable, because now labels are less likely to cherry-pick individuals based on namesake. This also means it's more likely for them to hire based purely on their capacity to actually provide good pieces of art, good pieces of music, good lyrics. This also means that smaller people gain access into the music industry. This is generally a net good for them and both the music industry as a whole. I explained it in my second statement. But what is the impact of the first part of my speech here panel? Just one fold. It gives more opportunity for the smaller individuals to contribute into the music industry in their own way. The comparative side opportunity looks like they are locked out of this due to the lack of namesake. Because when music labels realize that they are individuals, they are individuals that these people are going to platform, because you, inside opposition, when you do hire these people, you need to actually expose them and put their names on these pieces of art. Therefore, when these labels realize that they need to expose the name of the composers, they'll be more cherry-picking with the PR of these composers. Therefore, most green artists and most green individuals new to the music industry will have a disadvantage because they're just new, right? Just because they don't have a name for themselves yet. But secondarily, then panel, my second statement for today. How on our side we provide better musical diversity in the music industry? Well, firstly, panel, what is the comparative side opposition looks like in their world? Opposition artists or people within the music industry or people outside that want to get in have to write music on their own. The problem is this, that it is fully restricted by their artistic ability and creativity to actually be diversified and to actually stand out within the crowd. In the best case scenario, sure, a couple of artists will be bring into, but in worst case still then lies, and the majority of people will be locked out due to monetary differential and lack of capacity in and of itself. Well, how do we break this on our side then? We break this because ghostwriters can do these things for them. They can increase the capacity by default, right, panel? What is practically true? Because now there is a more diverse talent pool within the music industry in and of itself. No, panel. The average individual only cares about whether or not the music is good to listen to or not. Most of the time, they don't have any incentive to actually inquire on the technical parts of the music in and of itself. The intuitive puncture panel, most of the recognizable pieces of art in today's world is recognizable purely by the lyric and by the beat that you hear. You don't necessarily even know who composed it, you don't necessarily even know who published the music to begin with. You just know the beat because it's intuitive, just because there's something catchy for you to bang ahead to. What is the impact then, panel, under this framing? At the end of my speech, you believe two things, panel. Because first, it increases the efficiency of the music industry to actually generate multiple types and genres of music in and of itself, which generally provide better music at a low cost. But secondly, then the capacity for the industry to platform one genre of music means they are able to cater to a wider audience at the end of the day. What is the weighing then on the outside panel? My timer just reset, but I'm assuming I'm close to 5. Anything before? Okay. Moving on. What is then the preemption on their side and panel, since I have the time? Firstly, the barrier of entry for newcomers becomes high on that side. But secondarily, the barrier of entry into the music industry in status quo is already extremely high based on my framing. They have to restart this. The majority of artists will end up with failure at the end of the day. How does opposing the stigma then solve this under the delta of accessibility? Firstly, the barrier of entry into the music industry as a ghostwriter is lower than as an artist, so you always have this option to just be a ghostwriter, even if you don't have a name to show for yourself. But secondarily, then you also get network and resources while being a ghostwriter. It then acts as a stepping stone as to become the genuine artist in the future. It is more likely to increase the likelihood of success under our side. Then, what did I posit to you in today's debate in my speech alone before first? Panel, in this part of my speech, you should believe a couple of things. Firstly, we provide accessibility regardless of whether or not the person wants to become a ghostwriter or wants to become a genuine artist that hired a ghostwriter. But secondarily, then, for the music industry as a whole, the talent pool increases purely by the ability to actually compose and make lyrics at a low cost. But thirdly, then, panel, these corporations and these labels will be more likely to hire people that are new, therefore giving a high quality of accessibility in the first place, just because you're able to access these structures of high capital to begin with without needing to compensate your name at the end of the day. What do they have to do to win this debate? The delta is simply accessibility, and types of accessibility that we can access, and it's generally the better diversity for the better music diversity for the music industry, better things for you to listen to on Spotify. If you want good beats, rock.
A bit of it.
I prefer not to use a mic, so if I have to speak like this, can you hear?
I mean, technically using a mic.
What? Okay. Okay, can you hear? No problem.
From there.
Okay, so I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. No introduction today, let's go straight into what is a ghostwriter. So they are writers who are paid by a singer or a label to write a song for them. But the important thing today is that they are writing without credit. How the process goes is that they will sign off your writing rights. For example, if I was a singer, I would pay a writer to write for me maybe for the next 5 or 10 years, and they would sign off their rights exclusively towards me. They have to sign an NDA saying that they cannot reveal that they are the secret person writing my songs, and they also have to sign away their intellectual property rights towards me. Maybe they will get a few royalties based on how well the song performs, but ultimately I will be the one raking in the big bucks whenever the song does well. In other words, I am leeching off their talent without giving them proper credit or the proper recognition that they deserve. Yes, I am basically treating them as a doormat, but why would they want to be in this position in the first place? Let's take a look at the motivations of a ghostwriter, why they put themselves in this position. Firstly, because they are a ghostwriter, it is safe to assume that they are extremely talented in not just music, but literature in itself. They're able to recognize these beats, but not only that, they're able to come up with fantastic words for each beat. Let's not forget that music is not just about the beats or the person singing it, but it's about the beauty of the lyrics, the message that it conveys. So, what the problems with today's world and why a ghostwriter would accept this motion is number one, money. The thing is, maybe in some endeavors of life, writing is unfortunately not such a lucrative offer. But suddenly, when a record label or a singer comes in and offers you a above average sum when you are clearly struggling, of course you will take it regardless of what the conditions are. Even if you have to give away your credit, even if you have to strip naked, you do it no matter what. Number two, the current market and the exploitation. Unfortunately, the music market in today's day and age is incredibly exploitative. The problem is markets expect these ghostwriters to be loyal to the singers always, to forego credit, to just strip down and lick their feet just like that. That is unfortunately the status quo. And even if someone wants credit, they stick to the principles, they will ultimately lose their job to other ghostwriters, people who are willing to forego the principles and just follow the status quo, because ultimately to them, money is more important. It is just a matter of adapt or die. Number two, they probably look up to the artist in itself. For example, I love Linkin Park. So if Linkin Park were to ask me to write a song for them, of course I'll do it. I won't even give them credit, because at the end of the day, it is something that I personally want to do. But I will explain why that is not good for the music industry as a whole. And lastly, they are probably unaware of the potential. A lot of people, if they don't want to, they are probably introverted and they don't even know how good they are. So music artists tend to take away the talent and not give them proper credit for it. So finally, now let's talk about why an artist would hire these types of ghostwriters. First of all, artists, they are good at singing, but they're not often good writers. Yet they want people to believe that they are. Why? Because they want to maintain their legacy. Whenever you see an artist who does not state their writer, you immediately assume that they wrote their own songs, right? That they are the creative genius behind this. But sometimes they just call ghostwriters for themselves to pretend to be the one who wrote the song, so that they can, number one, maintain their legacy as someone who writes beautiful music, beautiful art, and shares it to the world. And number two, they can sort of have a certain style, the style of the ghostwriter, and be famous for originality. And what happens if you're famous as a writer? You get more fans, you get more revenue, you get more people idolizing you. And more often than that, when you have those people idolizing you, you can maximize profit. And when the ghostwriter is a known person, they are less likely to be paid very high sums. So at the end of the day, the big bucks, the Benjamins, are all yours at the expense of the credit that the ghostwriter deserves. Ladies and gentlemen, our stance today is very, very simple. We are okay with writers using the songs of other people. At the end of the day, all they need to do is give them the credit that they deserve. If they were to write a song with a foreign writer, just write the name of the writer in the description and say a couple of thanks. It is, and link the handle and whatnot. It is not that hard. At the end of the day, it is a collaboration. Credit is not taken away. Credit is shared. Now, a few rebuttals towards the government case. The PMS case is largely built on the fact that companies often hire these writers due to namesake. Firstly, namesake is famous. The name is famous because they probably have the talent. They have proven multiple times, time and time again, that they have the talent and they have the passion to make a good song, which is why they are hired by these companies, because they can actually produce fantastic songs. But let's just say that it is they actually, for the sake of the argument, let's just say that they do hire for the PR. Well, this thing, we live in an age today where indie music, independent music, is in is everywhere right now, and that is the hot thing. That is the trendy part of PR. Indie music appeals to a very large wider audience who are fed up with the mainstream, and all they want to do is just see new people pop up. So naturally, for the sake of PR, won't you hire new writers, people who have talent but are not given it to shine, and show their name just to attract a wider range of audience and get more money? And secondly, they assume that the average person only cares about music, but I disagree, because if people do like the beat, they will want to know who made the beat. If they like the lyrics, they want to know who made the lyrics, so they can explore other endeavors of these beats, lyrics, etc. Indian music always states the composer, the singer, and the lyricist, and so and it's not like each avenue has their own fan base. No, the fan base is shared. The composer's music are listened to a lot, the lyricist's music are listened to a lot only because of the lyrics. And now to my first argument, the music industry should be a fair ground for everyone. People should not leverage the work of others without credit. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to believe today that music is not just the voice, it is the lyrics. But why is it's also the lyrics, it's also a beat, well, why is all of the credit given to the artist? This is a very predatory circumstance in which the writer loses their IP rights, the opportunity, and the fame. They lose a lot of money in the process, and at the end of the day, they have to sign an NDA, which means they won't get loyalties. They are basically being leached off, and they will lose a lot just to serve a singer who takes away their fame, who capitalizes off their work and gets more recognition from it. But why is this stigma towards them good in the first place? Firstly, if you were to ridicule and hate, not predicate, but stigma means to ridicule and hate the singer who uses this type of ghostwriters. In the end, they will lose their fan base, which is their biggest source of revenue. Number two, other artists who actually value these writers or want good PR, they won't work together with them. In turn, losing the revenue somehow because they do not want to be affected by this stigma. But an ex-ghostwriters too can use it as a moral high ground, saying, I used to use a ghostwriter, now I know why it's wrong. How will this affect a ghostwriter who becomes a writer? Firstly, they will get more recognition and they will be able to jumpstart their career better. And in the end of the day, they can guarantee a better life, a better future for themselves in this market. Credit is not taken away, it is shared. Thank you.
The biggest priority that a music label has is to uphold its integrity and to uphold the value of the artist that it wants to platform by virtue of wanting to make the most amount of money that it can, by virtue of getting the most amount of audiences that it's able to garner. The problem with this opposition model so far is that they explain to you that one, simply slapping an individual's name or a random writer onto the particular credits of like a particular music or a Blackpink video that you want to do is somehow one, the tipping point to recognition for this artist, which is something that I want to question in the first place because of the nature of how corporations behave in the ways that I'm just going to explain right now. The first thing that you need to understand is that the reason in which why corporations behave in this particular way in terms of how they platform the artists primarily is because they want to attain profit. This means that the natural behavior of a corporation in response, if they were to have to platform another individual underneath, which actively takes the recognition, actively takes the profit incentivized benefits away from your artists like Blackpink, means that there needs to be some level of considerations or deep considerations with that in there itself before you want to platform this individual. What does this then mean? This buys into all of the harms that Harith tells you about, which is why corporations are likely to be extremely picky with the kinds of people that they want to platform. Which leads me to my first question in this debate. As to one, why the barriers of entry as an individual artist, irrespective of their talent or as a writer, is something that's really, really hard. It is for all of the structural reasons Harith explained to you in the first place. Mechanisms like financial, namesake, and etc. are all considerations that these corporations make before deciding the kinds of people that they want to platform in the first place. But the second thing is that labels are aggressively picky about the kinds of people that they have to platform. Because note, the volatility and the competitiveness of this industry means that relevancy is something that individuals or corporations strive for. This means one day you're dropping a $1 billion hit on the charts, but the next day you could very well be someone that's irrelevant. The problem with this then becomes that corporations are extremely conscious of this volatility within the industry, which means that there's a hyperfixation on the kinds of people that they want to platform, and there's always an incentive for that to be of net positive utility to them. This means that under their model, the first thing I want to question is why corporations are likely to portray these artists by slapping their name in a way that's significant enough for this artist to get any form of recognition in the first place, if it's directly coming at the expense of the main artist in and of itself. But the second thing I want to argue on is to just explain to you why the extent of people that they probably want to platform are also significantly going to be rather limited. This feeds into a lot of Harith's analysis to explain to you that one, they're likely to pick more established writers in the first place. I'm unclear as to why an individual with no rep, no form of recognition as a lyrical writer is somehow going to be platformed by Y2 Entertainment, which is already something that's taking away some optics from Blackpink. This means that they're probably going to get the best of the best artists to write the lyrics to then derive some form of commercial value from platforming this artist. They haven't dislodged our claim as to why we've given the best forms of accessibility to newer individuals who want to break into this industry without rep. But the second thing I want to ground here is why is this accessibility into the industry super important for these individuals? Opposition concede these are people that are largely passionate about music and want some form of way to express it. Harith contends and explains to you that the barriers of entry as an independent artist is something that's largely difficult in the first place. This is because of isolative natures of how the industry works. This means most of the time, under their model, you lock out individuals from being able to express this art, be it lyrically or musically, or having the resources within these labels to access these things. We flip this issue on our side when we oppose the stigmatization because we simply create a more conducive and less considerative environment for these agencies in the first place. What does this do then, and why is this valuable for these individuals that are able to break into the industry? The first thing is that it allows them to express their music creativity and actually be able to feel like they have some level of contribution and consideration within how labels operate and the kinds of music that they put out. Opposition concede this. When they say you get to work with the artists, you get to consider and discuss with them the kinds of lyrics and the kinds of songs that you want to write. These are all ways, like such as their own mechanism of deriving joy from working with your artists and looking up to them, are all ways in which you derive these forms of catharsis and joy as an individual. We argue with you on the comparative, but the struggle of simply breaking into this industry or operating as an independent artist with significantly high likelihoods of failing is something that's significantly harder. But the second thing then is that we also explain to you what the inherent value of music and why this is also a transferable benefit for the corporations in and of itself. Note, Judge, that within the modern century of how mainstream music operates, a large part of the time, individuals don't introspect on the nuances of music in and of itself. Why is this so? The modern generation is largely super attentive to this audience, we can't even focus on simple things. But the second thing to simply note under this is to explain why most of the time these are forms of music in our platforms on radio, on Spotify. We don't think individuals are going to Spotify and clicking on the three dots there to see who wrote why. People are more likely to listen and see, okay, this is Daft Punk, I like the vibes, this is great. Why is this important to weigh in this debate? It is important to weigh the psyche of the individuals and how they process the music they have against their argument of representation. This means that even in their best case, where they are able to actually platform these individuals, their case still depends on the way in which the audience and the other actors engage with that portrayal for it to materialize. That's an uncertain benefit on our side. I'm proving to you why it's unlikely to be true. But the second thing I want to explain to you is that under our model, by virtue of the fact that corporations are more incentivized to employ ghostwriters, give them the resources to express their creative arts, this means that one, because of the lack of consequence for a corporation, how anonymous these things are, it means that the extent of which artists are able to leverage upon these forms of resources to put out the kind of lyrical music that they want is significantly higher. This is important for the artist, but also important for the industry. The first thing was to explain to you why you get to express your ideas and platform it and pitch your ideas into how this industry wants to portray the music. But the second thing is to simply have more diversity in ideas. The comparative that under their model is two things. Either A, the artist actually writes their own music, or two, you get a limited pool of people who probably have to output and think of diversified ideas for creativity. Why is this valuable for the label, and why is it valuable for the music industry as a whole? This means that the diversification of music, the diversification of ideas of people involved in the creative writing process is something that is of net positive utility because it gives audiences and caters to larger forms of fan bases. This trickles down then to even these particular ghostwriters. This means that now on our side, these agencies can employ more ghostwriters, pay them better, give them some form of livelihood which inherently fulfills their dream on a personal level to want to contribute to these industries and largely sustain the livelihood of these. To conclude my speech, I just want to flash out the impact that we give you in this debate. The first thing is that we explain to the barriers of accessibility and the most important things in this debate for newer individuals, because individuals with rap, individuals that are good, will always break into these industries either under labels or because they have the resources to access it by virtue of capital. For those reasons, we way over that.
Sorry, John.
Testing. If you are not going to put the name of ghostwriter in any of the songs, you will never get recognized, no matter how long you give, how many times you give them. If you are working in a market where you expect all companies or all singers to expect that the composers will be a ghostwriter instead of putting their name on it, naturally, these composers have no choice but to come down to you because this is their only source of income. In other words, whatever they complain about music industry, such as the high barrier to enter it, such as this and that, hard to get famous and so on, is actually simply a symptom of the problem that has been existing in the music industry for so long, such as the rampant exploitation of the music industry towards them, such as not putting the name of composer instead of making them a ghostwriter. So this barrier of entering music industry is actually not the reason why ghostwriter exists. Ghostwriter doesn't exist as a solution for it, but instead this barrier exists due to this music industry actually exploiting music composer and making them as ghostwriter, right? So in this debate, what are you going to do? Basically, we are imagining a new world where putting composer name on song is a norm. Yes, we bite the bullet that not every composer is going to be tailored to the composer of Taylor Swift. Not everyone is going to get the fame. Yes, there is mortality in the music industry, but what we can expect in our world is that at the very least, music composer, they really can start from putting their name in a less famous song and slowly gain their experience and fame on it, right? They expect that there is at least some form of improvement in terms of treatment towards the music composer, in our case, in comparison to their case. So let's see, like, what is the best case in their case that they are trying to propose to us today? So I think that in the end of the day, right, music composers in their case would still not be known by the industry or by the fans or by other companies, because the only person that knows you in that industry is a person that exploits you, is a person that forces you to sign a non-disclosure agreement. This is the only person that knows your talent, and as a result of this, you are only forced to be constantly employed by this kind of people. You have no choice to switch to other people simply because other people don't know you. This simply this perhaps gives the music composer some sort of income, but it also means that they are prone to exploitation because they simply have no other choice and they simply lack the fame. And this is the reason why credit and fame in our case is such an important factor in this music industry. Right? We believe that in the end of the day, a music composer who is a ghostwriter is likely to leave the industry eventually, simply because they don't have the feeling of being appreciated. You tell us that yes, they can also derive catharsis from cooperating with artists. But the thing is this: if you are putting that name on it, if you have a norm in the music industry where people put the song composer name on it, they would also derive catharsis provoking with that singer of that famous artist, right? So in the end of the day, their best case scenario is basically just having a status quo where music composers still not get a fame, they are still prone to exploitation, not getting IP rights, and also basically not getting any credit from it. So why in our world stigmatizing to actually change all of this problem, right? First of all, in a world where having a ghostwriter is being stigmatized, we would expect that singers or artists who are doing so will be highly ridiculed by their fans and also the music industry peers. They will be heavily looked down upon by people around them and also the fans industry. As the government team characterized, right, this industry expect a huge amount of profit, and oftentimes in order to get this profit, they need to have a large enough fan base. So if the general stigma of this society is that ghostwriter is something that is not appropriate or not good, what you would expect is that if that song becomes famous or if that singer becomes famous, naturally people are going to search that. If they are the original writer of that song, if they really write that song itself, and they will demand something, for example, like proof or evidence and things like this later. So even if their fans themselves would not do so, I believe that haters of them, for example, like Taylor Swift hater and so on, will also be actively searching them. And even if there is no evidence produced after everything, at least there will be increased amount of discourse about the issue of ghostwriter. You can see there's an increased pressure, increased stress on the music industry to put the name of the actual music composer into the song itself. But second of all, in a world where people stigmatize this ghostwriter, right? We also think that not putting their names within their reputation of the artist. So how it looks like is that when people view this as something negatively, fans will do things like stop following their page, stop listening to their song, and this reduces in volume towards their song and also to the ad page, right? Will reduce the profit of the music industry. And if you are saying that they are motivated by their profit, then naturally they are going to do something that is more morally correct, which is to follow the norm of including their names on it. But if I continue, here's a few lines.
Okay, not everyone wants famous writer. Some people simply just want to feel recognition and involvement in the industry. Our burden is just to prove why we're okay with ghostwriters existing. You need to oppose and explain why this is good on your side.
Here, as we established in this debate, right? We tell you that how fame and credit is important in order for you to not just survive in this industry, but also to secure another employment contract from another music companies, right? Because this is what is able for you to maintain your job security, or else the only option for you is to maintain in that company that asks you to sign a non-disclosure agreement that make you not recognize the other people. If you really don't want your name to be there, right? I believe that there are a lot of better solutions. For example, like not putting your real name, but instead putting another name, right? Instead of putting Chun, I can put Keat, for example. So this is how the way of solution for it, right? But at the very least, what we can achieve is that we can make sure that fame is being given to someone else. But then, okay, but what will happen to those ghostwriters who has already been a ghostwriter? We think that it will also encourage current artists to just go out and admit that, they are actually hiring ghostwriters in the past, right? Because by doing so, it means that this artist or these singers is going to stand in the moral high ground by telling the world that, okay, finally I admit my mistake and I shouldn't do this because this is something that's exploitative and this is something that's not recognizing other talent. And we believe that with all of this, right, to improve the treatment towards the others, they are giving credit to others and have a better music industry. Thank you.
sorry guys, is it audible?
Better now. Can you put it closer to your mouth?
Yeah, is it? Wait.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah, that's why.
Dengar je, boleh je.
Yeah, okay, right.
Boleh. Dari tadi boleh.
Starting my stage in 3, 2, 1. Panel, this team is actually not responsive. So far, Harith and Praveen's speeches have proven you 3 things. 1, we proved to you there's a lower barrier of entry into the music industry itself, and the likelihood of getting higher is inherently low. 2, we also proved to you how we're going to get better accessibility and outside the house. We're going to get resources, we're going to get network. This is how we're going to treat it as a stepping stone to the music industry itself, to know more people and do the music that actually get credited they want to claim under their side of the house. 3, we also claim how this better improve the music industry itself, because we're able to give more diversity to the music industry itself, right? Because more writer, more buy-in means that we're going to create more types of music, and the people on the ground still have a choice to choose what music you want to listen to. All 3 cases are left not engaged by any of the speakers, both of the speakers coming from this team, right? The problem here is both PM and also both our and DLO speeches have so far no engaged any best case scenario under our side of the house, right? I don't think so far until now you could credit any of their engagement there because it's not valuable. 2, I mean that in Praveen and also Harith's speeches, they both prove to you people still have a chance under our world, right? If you want to get credited, of course, go ahead, become a genuine writer and don't sign the NDA, whatever of that have proposed to you. You can still be a writer and get credited. If you are good enough, of course, do that. But under outside the house, we pretty prove to you 2 things. 1, not everyone wants fame, which means that if you just want people to listen to your music, it's completely fine for you to become a ghostwriter, right? It doesn't harm any of the party. If they don't prove any harm to the music industry itself, right? I don't think they can win this debate. But even though they claim they win, it's still way too late. 3 main clashes that panel today. 1, on their main push today, which is the credit that is given to the artist. This is extremely problematic, Judge. Why? 3 things. They say people will forego the principle and just get the job and become a ghostwriter, and they just forego their principle of getting credited of their music, right? This is actually problematic because of 3 reasons. 1, as I mentioned, if people really want to write a song and their song want to get heard by others, I think that this is a motive of me being an artist and also a writer, right? No matter a ghostwriter or writer, I want people to listen to my song. They have the right to write a song and sell to a music for the publishers, right? No matter what you're going to get, ghostwriter or writer itself. Which means that if you want to be a writer in the end of the day, of course, go ahead. But if I'm as a normal average person that have never get into the music industries before, I think it's totally fine for me to trade off as a ghostwriter to go to the industries, sell my song to a good artist, and they sing my song. This is where people are able to have access to my song. People are actually listen to my song. This is where I get the catharsis. This is where I actually get catharsis from. Why this is important, panel? This is important because people actually get a chance to listen to my music, right? By comparative to their claim, in their house, people can generally only become a writer. We need to explain to you the competitiveness in the music itself, the music industry itself is actually is very hard to opt into, right? The barrier of entry is very high. The other side of the house, it's harder for people to listen to your music. It's harder for you to get hired. This is important because Harith has reports to you how it is likely for their people, for the individuals, are less likely to get hired into the industry in the first place. Panel, this is important because most of their impact only contingent on the fact that they get hired, only to get credit. If the point that they don't get hired because they are newcomers to the industries, all their impacts automatically fall, right? But 2, we also explain to you that even though these artists just want money, right? The only thing that they want is money. I think it's definitely okay for that because what their claim is credit. But credit is only important for people that actually want credit, which is like you can choose to be a writer, right? But if people really want credit, of course, go ahead. Credit is only important for people who care about it. When the writer sold it voluntarily, we say that they have the rights to do so. We don't think that credit to the writer is important in the debate. But let's take a best case, which is that they want to say that they will cry about credit, right? But if when I explain to you, a lot of people just want fame. They don't want fame. A lot of time they just want their music to get heard by others. If they care about the fame so much, if they care about the credit so much, bro, just don't sign the NDA, just don't sign the contract, become a genuine writer, publish your song, if you have the capacity to get hired there. But before that, go.
The thing about recognition and fame is that if you don't want it, you can live a quiet life. But it is important for someone to get that so they can have enough money to, or revenue, future revenue.
We can get money under our sub house as well, because they pay us more, they pay us a certain amount of money if we sell our song to them. But two, we also engage with your worst case, which they actually want to publish that they actually want to publish and get credited by their song. We tell you that of course you can go to sign your contract, but you don't engage with that, you don't prove that, I prove it for you. I don't understand what else you want, right? But second thing, they say it's bad for people who write the song for someone that they like. But that is actually problematic, because we explain to you, we get catharsis from we're writing from a singer that we like. We get catharsis from writing to someone that actually listens to us. We get happiness when we actually get a chance to talk to them as an ghostwriter, right? This is where we get the exclusive catharsis from that they don't engage on. But third thing, they say they want to maintain legacy under their side of the house. I don't think that this is either exclusive under their side. We think that it's symmetric, because their legacy, the singer legacy, the artist legacy, will still stand anyways if they sing a good song, right? Like, I don't care, but as long as someone sing a very good song, like some Hong Kong singers, I'll still credit them, and they still have a legacy with that. But no, what are we today? Two things. This is all about two more things is about the accessibility and diversity that they never engage on. We have to do that, but still too late. Two things are on the way in today's debate. One, accessibility. I think accessibility is more important than the credit that they want to claim. Because credit, you can choose if you want to, you have the option for that. But accessibility is the thing that you need to reform, only that you can get accessibility, right? We explain to the stigma on ghostwriter inherently stop people from opting into the industries. How we explain to you? We explain to you that the barrier to enter into the industries as a ghostwriter is lower than an artist. You get network, you get resources for being a ghostwriter. This is a stepping stone for you to become a genuine artist in the future. We have a likelihood of success in the future and to achieve whatever benefit they want to claim under their side of the house of being a writer, to get credited or whatever that. We explain to you this is an important mechanism. There's a huge logical gap in their case itself. Panel, please do not credit that. But on the second thing, on diversity is definitely an important point and also net gain under our side of the house, right? Because you get more buy-in, you get more people to opt into the industries, you get more people to become a songwriter in the music industries, which means they will produce more diverse, because people's creativity are unlimited. They will produce diversified types of songs. This boosts up the music industries, and people still have a choice to choose what song they want to listen to, and it's a net gain for both music industries and the people on the ground to choose what they want to listen to then. But no, after my speech, I try to buy two things. One, we provide better accessibility to art industries. The second thing is we give diversified music. With all these reasons that we wanted to propose.
Test. Am I audible?
Yes.
I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. As a biomedical student, I think that the worst case can ever happen to me is the fact that I work for my professor for my final year research project in research, and I ended up not even getting it at all. I think that that's so terrible to begin with. I have a few questions to ask then. First, is it true? Hold on. First, is it true that on your side they get better careers prospect at the end of the day? We think that is, well, ensuring survivability. We think that is not, and it's better on our side of the house. Let's talk about survivability first. Comparing ghostwriter versus the collaboration that we're going to support on our side, we think that on both sides, we both get paid. But in fact, it is on our side that we get paid better because the fact that you're given credited would mean that you would have a better potential of getting collaborations in the future. I.e., their case states that because of their mechanism of not having name, their Mac is just simply problematic. The fact that you don't even have name in the first place for the songs, even the singers within the industry don't know that you exist. How the hell are you going to get recognition and get the future collaborations in the future? You just end up getting exploited again and again by the same writer and without being able to express yourself at the end of the day. We think that it is much, much better on our side of the house. Secondly, in terms of recognition, we tell you that we have better recognition on our side of the case, which is name. The fact that you're a name and the fact that people know you is the key towards you having fame, is the key of you having accessibility in the music industry in the very first place. They don't prove that on your side of the house. They even consider of the fact that they need a place in the art music industry in the future. Their impact is about like recognition, network, future opportunities, maybe to pave your way accessibility in the music industry. But just look at them, like the fact that you don't get credit in the very first place, you don't have your name written, but somehow you will get network, somehow you will get fame, and somehow you will get success and recognized by other artists in the future. It just simply doesn't make sense. We think that at the point that your name don't get recognized in the very first place, this is where your career stopped, and this is where you're not getting it in the very first place. Our question is that if you're forever being a shadow, there's just simply no way that you're able to access all of the impact you get that on your side of the house. On the flip side, we tell you that it is precisely the prerequisite that we complete for them that we're able to access all of their impact, precisely because that we are able to get their name on at the end of the day. Second question then, will it work to show credit? We say yes, because at the point that your narrative is shaped, right, this is where the sensitivity of the entire music industry and of the fan base is on whether or not in the originality of the songs at the end of the day, which means that people will be extremely sensitive towards people using ghost artists. You have fans that like you, and you have fans that hate you. That means that if you're a Taylor Swift hater, probably I'll work all my ass up to look for evidence whether or not that music is written by that person itself. I.e., so at the end of the day, I would pull out a lot of evidence at the end of the day. My fans, maybe the Taylor Swift fans, will probably work their ass up in order to look for evidence to support their own artists at the end of the day, which means that there's more discourse within the particular industry, so which means that there's no way for you to hype if you have the ghost artists at the end of the day. We think that there's a net benefit on all sides of the house that as long as stigmatization happens, this is where all our artists would get recognized at. But second, even if that doesn't happen on your side of the house then, we think that this is 20th century, right? Obviously, you're able to give credit to yourself. The fact that it's so far that you're not forced to sign a non-disclosure agreement, that means that I can publicly expose myself as someone that wrote music for Taylor Swift. That means that I could promote myself on TikTok and people are likely going to look at me. The algorithm is probably going to push people to look at me as someone who have wrote the song for Taylor Swift at the end of the day by playing that songs on my maybe my fame or maybe my video, because when people keep looking for this Taylor Swift video at the end of the day, it's likely the algorithm is going to push them to that anyways. But even if we're being extremely charitable and assume that people simply don't care about that and people simply don't care about who wrote that artist then, even if not, we think that the people within the music industry would care, right? Even if the fan base don't click on that 3 buttons in Netflix, on Spotify, I think that at the very end of the day, like all of these like scouts or all of the artists from the other industry, from maybe other country or other artists, are likely going to keep an eye on who are those people writing songs with their biggest enemy or their biggest competitor, which means that you have better collaborations in the future, even if they don't want to get paid. This is where they get better collaborations. This is where they get better agreement that probably would ensure better survivability of them. Thirdly, what about the incentive of the industry to support people, to continue to support this type of a ghostwriter collaboration thing, right? First, the ghostwriter thing, right? We think that they probably would still have incentive, right? Because first, they have no choice. The fact that a lot of like, artists simply would have writer blocks, which means that they have to go towards an external the fact that you use an external writer to write for your music. The shame is about not giving credit towards the writer that writes towards your music. So at the fact that you're showing integrity, you're showing that you are open towards giving credit to the people that actually put effort into making this song possible, this is likely that you will be celebrated too at the very end of the day. But even if that doesn't happen, right, we think that the narratives shift on our side of the world as well. People and the fans are going to celebrate you as someone that is willing to give a hand towards new artists at the very end of the day. That means that you are someone who is supportive of new artists, like Taylor Swift supporting a new artist, a new startup. This is a very good fame, and this is a reputation that a lot of artists want to get at the very end of the day. And more importantly, this paved the way for future collaboration. If I'm Taylor Swift and like a new Alan Water just came out, and I know his potential, he's going to rise up to be a new singer at the very end of the day. It's likely that me helping him a hand up to rise up to the fame that I am today, it's likely that I'm going to have good connections with them, and we're going to collaborate more in the future. This is going to be good towards me at the end of the day. I think this is where they want the support of the conducive agency for corporate and artists. They don't want to support volatility. They think that it's strong, but at the same time, they tell us that we don't have diversity. No, we tell you that it's precisely their Mac that told us that we have volatility is where we have diversity at the very end of the day. But second, we think that we don't care about the volatility. Anyways, right, we think that volatility is good because those people who are actually competing in the music industry we don't really care about those people who already have the fame in the music industry. Music industry is about who is the best artist should get the fame. We think that those people who do not deserve to be there and is leeching over others deserve to get down, and it's always those people who are better should get their fair share of the cake. We think that volatility doesn't matter here. In fact, we think that this is where we prove that we have better accessibility towards new debaters new artists there. Here's when the most toxic narrative came up, right? We said, oh, at the end of the day, at least that they are happy because they are looking up to them. That is the most toxic narrative I've ever heard. Just because my child is happy to helping me with my chores doesn't mean that it's justified for me to use it as child labor.
This debate can just be summarized into one clash, which is that which side better help the music writer. The government team basically just tell us one thing, which is that you can easily start your career as a ghostwriter, and then suddenly you'll be successful, and then suddenly you get all the things, and suddenly you get everything you like. They give no analysis on how this career as a ghostwriter may allow you to survive in the music industry, allow you to be free from exploitation, allow you to sustain yourself in this music industry. And therefore, Hannah, whatever impact they give you in the future, for example, like how it reduces the barrier, how it increases accessibility, and so on and so forth, it's just a wash. You can just ignore that. But what you have pointed out in this debate, they have pointed out to you that mechanistic error by telling you that how this start out of career as a ghostwriter, you should do not receive any credit, receive any fame, simply just prone you to exploitation by explaining to you how all those contracts work. So, for example, like signing non-disclosure agreement, signing the agreement to give up your intellectual property right, give up whatever fame and credit you have. In comparative, what has opposition team tell you? They have tell you how stigmatizing itself actually changed what the fans and also what the music industry in generally want. We tell you that how when the music industry is motivated by profit, they certainly don't want to lose their fan base, which stigmatize ghostwriter at all. No matter how a mechanism works, right? We are the only team in this round that actually give you a mechanism on what we are doing actually helping music writer. So we bite the bullet with that. Yes, perhaps a music writer wouldn't have a startup that immediately get them fame. A music writer might not have a startup which has a catharsis of working with Taylor Swift. But on what probability in their case does all of these things happen to begin with? I think that mess up possibility with probability, but they're telling you that in their case, a ghostwriter can suddenly somehow work with Taylor Swift in the beginning of their career and they get the catharsis of it. I think that this is something that is just a fantasy from their side. Okay, so we also proved to you in a further part of our debate, in like how it's easier for them to sustain and survive in this industry, given that perhaps they are starting small, perhaps they are writing for some singer, they are not that famous, they are not Taylor Swift, but perhaps by doing so, they get some sort of experience and fame, and also fame and credit. And with this little fame and credit they accumulate time by time, right, they're able to survive and sustain. They don't survive to sustain. And even if they don't like this singer, at least in our case, it is only in the opposition's case, with this fame and credit, right, they can switch companies. They have the choice to go for other people. I already told you in my speech that in their case, they are not able to switch company or search for a better future simply because they have signed an agreement, simply because people don't know them and they have no way to survive in this music industry. I think the only benefit that is possibly left to them is basically just that the somehow catharsis of they achieve that they are able to work with singers. But better knows this is not exclusive to them. It also applies to our side, where obviously music composer is going to work with music writer, but then their impact or their benefit is significantly reduced by the non-appreciation of the work of this ghostwriter. Even that they might be hearing their songs at the street, but no people know that they are the one that actually contribute to this song. This feeling of like being unappreciated or being not recognized is something that has reduced the benefit of catharsis a lot. So and then suddenly PHY, or I don't know, the argument is trying to say that, oh no, maybe some singers simply don't like their fame, they simply don't like the fame and so on. We think that it is just counterintuitive by saying that a music writer want to survive in the industry, but they don't want the credit and fame, which is crucial for them to survive in the industry. I think that this contradicts to their point to begin with. So with all of these reasons, right, I believe that yeah guys, please support the opposition team. Thank you.
Sorry, a bit taller than you.
Why? I can tell. I can tell. I just smelled it from here.
Josh, don't let them get away with this huge misconstruction of what the burden of our case is. Our burden isn't to prove necessarily why success is the major outcome by which you opt into ghostwriting, but rather to prove why the accessibility into the industry for those who already struggle to access in an industry that's very selective of the kinds of people that they platform is the most important thing. The first thing I want you to take note of is that there's a crap ton of new material coming out in WIP and a huge misconstruction of what our case actually is. We don't think you can credit that. I'm going to make this delta very clear for you. But the first thing I want to do is to explain four things that this opposition case premises on. One, it premises on what the individual wants. They say this individual wants to be platformed all the time. We contend and explain to you that sometimes by virtue of the fact that you're able to express creative writing and just have contributions within the industry and work with people that you want to work, it is one way in which you derive value. The dependency of how this individual wants to platform themselves for fame is still a blur on their side. They argue they have to be famous and need to be platformed. The second thing I want to talk about is that they argue that it's about getting the opportunity. We contend and explain why getting that opportunity in the first place is something that's really, really hard. Which means under their model, one, the ability for you to access these industries in the first place is what all of their benefits hinge on in the first place. Which is why throughout the bench, we explained to you why with analytically A prior, they needed to dislodge the accessibility claim first and explain why corporation behavior is likely to cater more towards accommodating for more people when I've given you a dump of analysis to explain why A is either something that's going to be tokenistic, but B, it's likely to be something that is probably not significant. The third thing they needed to contend with, which premises their case, is fan perception and how in which your platform. The first thing we explained to you was the way in which people perceive traditions of music on Spotify and etc. This means that one, insofar as they cannot dislodge, disclaim and prove, the likelihood of success of their case premises on these three things. But here's how I want to contend with them. They say the reason why ghostwriters are going to get shunned down and exploited in our world is because these corporations are exploitative, and now this is bad. Why are corporations not going to be exploitative under their model? I have no idea. Even if they slap your name onto some song credit, why are they not going to be exploitative? Why are they not going to be extremely coercive and change the behavior of the corporation? Absolutely not mechanized. And wait, but the important thing you need to know here, Judge, if fame and accreditation was the most important thing for the actor and for the individual in this debate, note that our burden in this debate, by virtue of how this motion is worded, is that we simply need to oppose this. This means in our side, the perception of ghostwriters is one that's net neutral. We don't need to explain to you why this individual is going to be locked up into ghostwriting. If they want to overcome the structural barriers that we explained exist in status quo, they have all the agency to do so. We're just explaining why the alternative of being able to opt into ghostwriting is one that's inherently valuable if your intentions are to just be able to get some premise of accessing the music industry as a whole. On corporational behavior, I explained to you the natures of how corporations behave and why they're unlikely to deplatform the main artist in favor of someone that gives them no positive utility or lesser positive utility, and we explained why that's extremely harmful for minority artists. The second thing we contend on was the palatability of music for people perception and why that's something that's significantly vague, and that the modern way in which music is perceived is something that's unlikely to necessarily introspect into the nuances of things like lyrics or songwriting, or like songwriters and producers and etc. This means that their premise of success hinges purely on first-hand being able to access these industries. Insofar as they haven't dislodged my analysis of corporational behavior, our claim still stands. But on working with artists and explaining isolative natures. No, Judge, they say our case is premised on ghostwriting, hitting networks, and achieving success. This is a fallacy. What we explained to you, that the point in which you can access these resources in ghostwriting allows you to improve your ability to make music, improve the way in which you engage in music, understand the way the industry works. This means when the contractual basis of the NDA that we want to talk about ends, you have the capacity to opt into the actual mainstream industry, and you're more prepared for it on our world. That is the contention that we make even in the worst case. It is not the crux of the case, nor was it our burden to prove. We've been extremely charitable, Judge. You ought to give the battle to government.